Now I'd like to bring in our next guest on the program, Steve Wilbourne, the CEO of Questis out of Charleston, South Carolina. Steve, good morning.
Good morning. How are you guys today?
We're great. Nice to have you on the program.
Thanks for having me.
Hey, I see I've got another Ohio-educated caller on the phone today. You're Bowling Green grad, right?
That is correct.
Yeah, I'm a Buckeye. We won't get into that. We'll save that for another time, though. So, but nice to have you here. You're doing some really unique things over there at Questis, and let's open up by giving our audience a little background on what you guys are doing and your unique footprint around this financial wellness space.
Yeah, our perspective really starts from when we started Questis. I was originally and have been in the investment advisory space for many, many years, and I served primarily what I would kind of consider the middle tier millionaire client or the mass affluent client, and primarily from the perspective of managing money and or managing assets inside their retirement plan. And so a few years ago, really as we began to see the financial services industry changing as a whole, specifically the investment advisory space, we felt like we had an opportunity to better serve our customers or our clients through technology and also to scale our business. But unexpectedly, it was through the process of exploring technology for our investment advisory firm that we kind of stumbled upon this gap between the traditional retirement DC plans and the employer. And it was this idea that I kind of always said when I would go into a company, especially a lot of small businesses, employers, especially the HR departments, don't necessarily have huge resources, and or the smaller the company, the less that HR team's capability might be. And so when it came to providing retirement benefits, it was oftentimes that they were kind of misguided, misinformed, and lacked, I thought, the tools and kind of the knowledge to provide the optimal retirement benefit for their people. And then likewise, when you looked at the employees themselves, I found it always interesting that we have all these statistics flowing around in the marketplace, like 76% of Americans living paycheck to paycheck, yet we expected an employee to be able to focus years ahead on, solving their personal, lifetime income equation. And so I always felt like there was this huge gap, and if anything, it was a little bit the blind leading the blind, where there just was this disconnect. And as we started really exploring technology, we saw the opportunity to actually provide a service for employees regardless of where they were on their financial journey. And it was at that point we started communicating with companies, talking with HR directors, talking with CFOs, and really looking as to what's in the market relative to financial wellness and what were companies doing to kind of make sure that their people were better off than just having access to a retirement benefit. And as we got into that a few years ago, it was really alarming to us because there were so many of these companies that we were hearing the same message, which is our people need help. HR directors were saying that they were frustrated because people would come to them with personal financial questions and they didn't feel comfortable answering those questions, whether it was for a liability reason or just a plain knowledge. And they were also very sensitive to the idea that when a personal financial question came up in the workplace, that it oftentimes led to uncomfortable conversations about payroll or advances against payroll or retirement plan loans or hardship withdrawals or any of these different things. And or even in some cases it would lead to conversations about more compensation or raises. And those were conversations that HR directors didn't really want to have because in a lot of cases they don't have the control to make that decision. On the other hand, we found that CFOs were really starting to say, hey, what's a financially sick employee do to our bottom line? How does it hurt our company? If they come to work and they're struggling with money, are they really the most productive employee that we could have? And so as we really began to kind of pull this information together, we knew that there was an opportunity to maybe fill in a gap that had never been addressed. But we knew that as, you know, from an old advisory kind of world, we knew that the only way that you could really do it was with technology and software and the ability to kind of scale the advisor and scale advice. And so that's kind of where Questis started. And now we have a pretty robust financial wellness platform. We would like to think that we're on track to being the most holistic and automated financial wellness solution in the marketplace. And we're now working both directly with employers through their HR departments and benefits, as well as partnering with some fairly large financial institutions who are also starting to kind of recognize that the future of financial advice may come through financial wellness.
Yeah, because you've got, and it's all complicated by the convergence of health and wealth, correct? I mean, we've got now with healthcare consumerism, you know, in full force, and the consumerization of benefits, we have, you know, the consumer, the employee consumer, faced with increased shared responsibility in making the right healthcare cost and response for that cost. Just a whole new dynamic.
I think healthcare is obviously probably the greatest concern for the future, not only from the employer's perspective, but also from the employee's perspective. You know, the amount of cost in the direction where healthcare has gone. I think that's the area that is the great unknown for a lot of people. And then I think if you start adding into that equation that more and more companies, as a way of kind of managing their healthcare costs, are going to even different types of employment models like Uber, where you've got these contracted workforces versus employed workforces. It even raises a bigger question, which is how does a subcontractor or a contracted employee, how do they manage those costs themselves when all of that burden now, you know, falls in their plate versus, you know, having the assistance of an employer-sponsored plan. So I think healthcare is one of the biggest issues that people have to begin to manage. And if people are not financially well off, or if they're struggling with their personal finances, all we're really doing is creating more and more people who may be ultimately underinsured or ill-prepared for, you know, one of those healthcare events.
Right, and then also, and this can be a positive, it can also be a major concern if not done right, but we've now got employee consumers with an HSA. What do I do with that? I've got a 401k on my right hand. On the left hand, I got an HSA. What should I do with both of these? You know?
Yeah, that's been one of the biggest surprises for us as we get into organizations and really start working with them. Is our experience so far is that employers are, you know, in more cases than not, employers are extremely generous and they provide an awful lot of benefits to their employees. And that's from retirement benefits to health benefits to savings benefits. But it's amazing to us when we go into a company how many employees, because of a lack of kind of knowledge, don't take advantage of things like flexible savings accounts or HSAs. And it's just a lack of understanding of what the product is. And while the professionals that you know sell those products or sell those plans into the employers are oftentimes to be the responsible party for educating those employees, that's part of the breakdown of the system. If I'm an advisor or if I'm an insurance salesperson or broker or something, and I go into a company with 1,000 employees, it's next to impossible for me to be able to personally reach all those employees. So even if that employer is very efficient at distributing information to their people, the chances are that, you know, when it comes to money, people are very quiet. It's that topic that no one ever wants to talk about. So
right.
It's very difficult in a group of, say, 100 or 200 people for someone to raise their hand and say, I don't understand what you're talking about. And so I think a lot of people go quiet. They don't ask their questions. And as a result, they end up kind of sticking their head in the sand and not taking advantage of what the employer offers. That's one of the things our platform solves, is we make those money conversations easy to have between an employee and through the Questis system. And so instead of those things having to happen at the employer level, the employer now has a tool that can take those questions off their plate. And while we do not sell health plans and we don't sell FSAs and HSAs and so forth, we certainly can be a huge ally for the people who do, because we're promoting that the best tier of advice starts with the products that the employer is offering in their benefits package.
Steve, have you approached some of the leading HSA players about potential, partnerships with them?
Yeah, I'm not gonna mention any names, but we are talking to some very large HSA administrators at this point. And,
yeah, makes sense.
And we think that, and again, this is kind of, I think, where the industry as a whole is going, is that whether it's the retirement benefits and service providers or the HSA service providers, I believe everyone is starting to acknowledge that we need more holistic financial wellness in the workplace. And so we're finding that there's opportunities throughout those different service providers for us to be a partner and or a potential solution.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. How about the traditional benefit advisor broker that you alluded to? Are you approaching them at all as a position yourself as a good tool for they to use with their employer clients?
We have not. We have explored it, but we have not yet reached in any sort of relationship with some of the bigger benefits brokers. We do think there's the possibility of a relationship there. It's just not something that we've had the opportunity to do yet. We would love to go down that path at some point.
Yeah. I'd be happy to talk to you about that at the right time. Hey, if I'm an employer listening right now, and what's the business model for me? If I've got 1,000 employees and I want to put this in place, just give me the typical business model. What am I looking at?
Yeah, our typical business model is that we work directly with the employer. The cost of the product varies based on the size of the organization. It typically ends up being a per employee per month charge. And again, we are it really varies, again, depending on size of the company. We typically find that it's very competitive with some of the other voluntary benefits that they may offer within their organization, and usually works out to be somewhere in the $5 to $10 per employee per month range. But again, It depends a little bit on the size of the organization, and then it also depends on some of the features of what that organization may want. We do a lot of what we do through a virtual interface. But we also offer some additional on-site support and education if it fits within that employer's kind of culture. So again, it's somewhat customizable, but it usually falls in that kind of direction. The employees all get access to their own kind of user interface. The employer also gets access to their own dashboard and their interface, where they can manage the benefit, they can manage the eligible employees on the benefit, and in addition to that, we are building out further and further kind of analytics for the employer, so that we can begin to kind of we don't share any personal financial information with the employer. We think it's extremely important that that information remain confidential to the employee themselves. But we do aggregate data across the entire employer so that we can begin to show trends or show areas where we think the employer may want to provide additional education or even potentially insights on things that they may do to improve upon their compensation and benefits packages for their employees.
Well, Steve, listen, I've enjoyed having you on the program today, and I look forward to us continuing this discussion sometime in the near future. I'd like to give you a chance to kind of recap and leave our audience with some takeaways, if you would, please.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is I think that, the financial industry is changing. I think that for a long, long time, we've seen a financial services market that was glad to work with kind of the upper tier of the market, people that had already reached a point where they had margin and the ability to invest their assets and buy financial products. And that's left a large portion of the American workforce underserved. And we think Questis is a product that not only provides great value to the employees, but we think it provides great value to the employer. And if anybody wants to learn more about us, they can find us at myquestis.com. And if they ever want to email me personally, my email is steve@myquestis.com.
Thank you, Steve, so much. Listen, you have a great weekend over there in Charleston. I look forward to talking to you again real soon.
Thank you very much, guys. Have a great weekend.
Thanks, Steve. Take care.